If you had a top 3 list of concerns for herbicide-resistant weeds in Saskatchewan, what would that list be and why? Which 3 weeds?
Certainly Group 1 resistant wild oat is very widespread. For example, in Manitoba, it's the majority of the fields now. It's a main herbicide group, our main graminicide group. Another one, at least for Manitoba growers, is Group 1 resistant green foxtail. And as a group, I would say Group 2 resistant broadleafs, particularly, well, we have kochia, which is almost 100% resistant now. Other weeds like wild mustard, cleavers is probably one that should be in the top 3. But there's so many Group 2 resistant broadleafs now that that list is growing continuously, and it's tough to do a top 3. But in the future, of course, glyphosate resistance. We're very concerned with resistance in kochia, which we're probably going to see very soon in Western Canada. And if we were to get glyphosate-resistant wild oat, that would really be a nightmare scenario because we would really lose our main tool for managing that. Growers, for example, with resistant wild oat, they tend to grow a lot more canola in their rotation because they have a new mode of action. Well, if we start to lose those new modes of action, then we're going to run into a brick wall.
And what's the biggest concern in Ontario?
Biggest concern in Ontario right now is glyphosate resistance. Giant ragweed has now spread from one site in 2008 to over 50 sites in a matter of 2 years. We have now glyphosate resistant Canada pleabane in southwestern Ontario. And so those are the top 2 concerns. They have a lot of Group 2 resistant broadleafs in Ontario as well, but a lot of that Group 2 selection pressure has switched over to glyphosate with the Roundup Ready corn and soybean, which is over 70% of the acreage of those crops. So that's their top 2 concerns right now is glyphosate resistant weeds, those 2 species. Yeah.
When you look at how American producers are managing this differently than producers in the prairie regions, is that a concern as far as the spread of herbicide resistance?
It is. In the Midwest U.S., for example, they're still dominated by Roundup Ready corn and Roundup Ready soybean grown either in monoculture year after year. Now their strategy to manage the glyphosate resistance problem in their weeds is to add a pre-seed residual herbicide to control those problem weeds, and also they're having to tank mix glyphosate with a new mode of action. So they're ramping up the herbicide use when these crops were meant to decrease herbicide use. They're ramping up the costs. For example, Palmer amaranth, they recommend that it costs an extra $50 a hectare to control the resistant population because of resistance. And so that is a direct impact on the grower's bottom line.
Long term, are you concerned that we could see the same situation with canola if growers plant every second year?
Yeah, certainly. From my records indicate that many growers now are planting canola every second year, and it is a concern if that keeps up, because the problem with canola, whether it's Roundup Ready canola, that's the only herbicide used in that crop, usually a burn-off plus 2 in-crop. And if you do that every other year, you're quickly going to get into a high-risk glyphosate resistance risk. And for the Liberty system, they're tank mixing a Group 1 product, most of them are, and so that increases, in many cases, Group 1 selection pressure. So if you do that every 2 years, you're just going to exacerbate the Group 1 resistance situation. So I try and tell growers, don't follow the market too closely. Keep your rotation, because crop prices are pretty good across the board, so try and keep a long-term view.